Hello, fourth graders. Welcome to our rose window design project. We are going to make a project out of the design we made last week. Hopefully you guys just watched a video about how real stained glass artists make stained glass. It's a really cool process. Obviously, we can't use glass and lead to make our rose windows, so we're going to do the best we can with materials that I hope you guys have at home. You don't need all of this, but this is what might be useful. So the very first thing is your design. Hopefully you have that. A black Sharpie, scissors, and then a clear plastic sheet. What I found at my house was some of these binder protector sheets that you put papers into to put them into a binder. You can ask your grown-up if you have any of these laying around. They're probably the best thing. Second best would be a gallon Ziploc bag, and we will just cut out the side one side of it that we want to use, and same for the binder page. Now for colors, the best thing to have is Sharpie pens in different colors. Now I know all of you won't have this. Even if you only have 2 or 3 colors, well, 3 would be best. That's okay. You don't need to have a bunch of colors. If you don't have Sharpie pens in different colors, a couple different options you might have are these window markers. These would work. And dry erase markers would also work. So if you're looking for dry erase markers, just make sure it says dry erase. And you don't want black, you want colors. Black is just all I had right now. If you don't have any of those, you're going to use paint, just regular craft acrylic paint, okay? No watercolor or oil paint or anything like that, just regular craft acrylic paint. Obviously, if you're using paint, you will want a paintbrush and a little water as well. Now, here's a little thing that I made showing you the difference between some of these materials that you can use for coloring. See, crayon, not the best. It will put a little bit of color down there, so if you don't have paint or Sharpie or any of those other options, you can do crayon. So the Sharpie ones are nice and bright. This is the craft paint, just acrylic paint, so it works great. Dry erase works great as well, but it does have a tendency to scrape off or smear off more than the Sharpies. A regular marker, these are both regular markers I found. You can see how some regular markers will put down a little bit of color and some just won't do any at all. So regular markers are not the best, crayons not the best, these other things would work. The last thing that you can use, if you want to do a little extra frame at the end, you're going to need a black piece of construction paper, if that's optional. Okay, now you're back. Let's move on. I'm going to use my binder protector. It's a little bit stiffer than the bag. Works a little bit better, but they both work about the same. And I'm just going to cut off one side of it. And I want to cut off the part that goes in the binder. And then I'm going to cut right up this line. Make sure you do leave this whole page because we want to use a lot of it, so don't make it any smaller as you're cutting. Again, if I'm moving too quickly, and I'm going to try to move quickly so this video doesn't take ages, then just pause as you catch up, okay? So listen to the instruction, watch me do it, and then hit pause while you do it. Okay, so we have our clear sheet and we have our design that we did from last week. If you haven't done your design yet, hop back on the playlist and go back to the rose window design video and follow me along there, okay? Place your plastic over your pencil design and then just go ahead and carefully trace your lines. Now, when we made our sections, we drew straight lines going all across. If you were using those straight lines in your design and you want them there, then leave them and use them. If you don't want them there, like let's say for example we want this center one to be just one shape without the lines, then we could erase the straight lines. There's also straight lines here, but I think I'm going to leave my other straight lines and just erase those center ones. You can go ahead and erase any of the straight lines you don't want. Place your plastic over and then just start tracing your lines. Okay, so you have your lines traced. Even a Sharpie gets a little bit smeary on this plastic, so you may have noticed as you were drawing that you would start to smear it, so just give it a little time to dry and try not to drag your hand across it as you're doing it. I'm going to flip my page over just so I can have a nice white background. And I'm going to take the side that I drew on and turn it to face down. That way, as I'm doing my colors, I don't have any chance of smearing these black lines into my colors. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate both Sharpie and paint. If you have the window markers or dry erase markers, it'll work basically just like this Sharpie. So just pick an area that you want to be a certain color, like I want my middle to be green, and go ahead and just color in. It's kind of like a coloring book. Okay, now I'll show you what to do if you wanted to use paints. Actually, so get a little bit on my brush, and then I just paint in the area that I'm filling in. You can make this as thin or as thick as you like. If you make the paint pretty thick, you won't be able to see through it as much in the window, but the color will be more vibrant. So it's up to you how thin or thick you want to make it. Okay, of course you want to clean your brush out after you're done with it in some water. Now, even if you covered up some of your lines on this side with your paint or marker, hopefully on the other side, those black lines will still be nice and strong because they weren't covered. Okay, now once that's dry, if you did paint, you might need to leave it to dry for a couple hours, especially if it's thick. If you did marker, just a few minutes. After it's dry, we're gonna cut it out. Okay, now once it's cut out, you can leave it just like that if you like it that way. You hang it up in the window with a little piece of clear tape and it'll be just lovely. If you're still having fun and you want to do a little something extra, we can add on a black frame. So if you have a black piece of construction paper, you can go grab it now. Pause the video and go grab it now. Okay, now what to do if you want to add the black construction paper frame is take it. First of all, make sure that the black construction paper is a little bit bigger than your window. You're going to fold your black construction paper in half. And then you're going to set your window. So now we have lines on ours and points of symmetry that helps us find out where the middle is. So we set it right in the middle and make sure that it's centered on both sides here. And we know that we have about that much thickness to work with before we just run out of the black paper. So I'm going to take that thickness and just sketch it out going around the whole circle, or half of it, I guess. And once that is a nice pencil line drawn, that's a little bit of extra all the way around. You can cut that while it's still folded. The nice thing about folding it is that you only have to cut half of the circle, so it's half of the work, but you still get a whole circle. Now, I want to lay my circle on there just to remind myself how much of a border I need. Okay, so my border is about my finger thickness. So I'm going to cut just a little bit bigger than that because I don't want any of my any air between my frame and my stained glass. So I'm just going to go around a little thicker than my finger. And now I have a nice frame. and we're going to tape the back of it. Just tiny little pieces of tape are all you need. And voila. Now, they look so beautiful, but you know where they look even more beautiful is in the window. So let's go over and look at it in the window.